Call this meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. I want to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory and in the land on which we are meeting is the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. As a council and a municipality, we will continue to work on moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. I'll ask for a motion for the adoption of the minutes, please.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council and the organizational meeting of council, both held at Prairie Fusion Arts and Entertainment on November 12th, 2024, be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Doyle. All those in favor? And that is carried. We have one delegation in the house this evening, in the chambers this evening. Fort La Reine Museum, if you just want to come up to the podium.
I'm going to bring paper next time. Go back to paper.
The floor is yours if you just want to state your name first, Emma.
Yeah, Emma and Smakaiva, Fort La Reine Museum. Okay, I know I have 5 minutes, right?
Correct.
Start my timer now. Okay, well, thank you, Mayor Knox and members of council for having me here tonight to give you a little overview of our 2024 season and allow me to say thank you for your continued monetary and in-kind support of the museum. We strive to be a noteworthy and worthwhile tourism asset, education center, and community gathering space for the residents and visitors of the city and district of Portage. I also want to say a personal thank you to this council. I've really felt your presence in the community, especially this last year. It doesn't go unnoticed. Because it's budget season, and I'm sure everyone here has been reviewing spreadsheets and documents for weeks, I thought it'd be a bit more fun just to go through some photos of this past year. So, well, mostly, gotta touch on a few things. I'm just gonna touch on a few of our pillars. We had another great year of field trips. We're looking forward, or looking into ways we can improve this to provide increased field trips and educational space for the Portage and Prairie Rose school divisions. Cost appears to be a primary obstacle for many schools. Next year, I'll be offering a discount with the National Indigenous Residential School Museum if classes book on the same day. Community engagement is such an important pillar in our mandate. Rental requests continue to increase in the museum, in particular weddings, parties, conferences. This revenue allows us to provide free or discounted rates to other local nonprofits to hold community events, such as children's programs from like the Family Resource Center, or cultural events, for example, the Ukrainian Kupala Night celebration hosted by the Portage Local Immigration Partnership. I would like to acknowledge all the partnerships we created and continue to sustain within the community, as well as our generous sponsors and donors. We feel that since rentals is by far our largest area of growth, we will be working toward improved venue spaces in the coming year to help us meet this growing demand, as well as gain secondary revenue streams. Heritage preservation and the state of the museum structures have been my primary concern this past year. One of my staff helped conduct a building assessment with me, which enabled us to prioritize the museum's buildings based on a set of criteria we came up with. These results will be factored in during strategic planning in January. So fun fact, out of 200 museums listed by the Manitoba Museum Association, we, along with St. Boniface Museum and Steinbach Mennonite Heritage Village, are all tied for the second oldest museum in the province. I keep this fact in mind when making collection and building decisions because you can't get the heritage back once you take it away. Hence why this coming strat plan will be very important to find the correct balance as a museum moves forward. We currently hold the 15th place for attractions in Manitoba for museums on TripAdvisor. Our goal is to be within the top 10. We were one of 10 museums chosen to participate in the Manitoba, next slide. The Manitoba Kids Choice Pass this year, which provided bundle deals for families to visit museums across Manitoba. Portage Tourism through PRED has been a successful community collaboration, and I think we've set a precedence for what rural and small city tourism can look like. much in part thanks to Kelly Verway and this picture of our new billboard and a collaboration we made on the Corn Maze sign. That was fun. That was a great asset this year. Yeah, next slide. I'm just going to run quickly through a few photos. I got about a minute left. The students made a murder mystery this summer. It went over really well. It was based on true historical timeline in Portage, early Portage. We've been working on our Indigenous perspective exhibit, new birch bark canoe, and stratigraphy model. Next slide, please. Our corn maze was a hit this year. I think it was the best we've done, thanks to Kevin Yule for planning it, and Bob and some of my staff helping me design and cut it. Next slide. Yep, we did a great Alice Chalmers event this year and participated in Orange Shirt Day activities, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. We were a partner on that. Next slide. Yeah, we held a 30th years of volunteering celebration for Rusty and gave him the first ever key to the fort, a new tradition I've started. That was a great event. Saw some of you out there. Next, please. Yeah, and I just wanted to say, you know, some of my favorite parts of the museum are just the day-to-day, honestly. Fixing up buildings, watching my staff, you know, bring their own like archaeology to the table for a Prairie Sunday, just things like that. Trying out Bob's crazy inventions. Next slide. I know I'm out of time. Wanted to say thanks for coming out to Fright. That was awesome. You guys really helped us up our game. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. We'll just go to the end. Yeah, and then just in closing, because I never ever make this in 5 minutes. A primary goal for 2025 is to hire a second position in the capacity I have yet to determine. This person would help in key areas such as volunteer coordination, retention, event planning, marketing, and targeted fundraising. Moving forward, we cannot rely on annual grants, some of which we get, some of which we do not, and admission alone, especially as costs continue to increase, most notably building materials. This position, as well as the implementation of a new strategic plan, will allow a much-needed pivot as an organization to meet the growing needs of the museum and the larger community of Portage. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Terry? Councillor Porter?
Thank you. I just want to say what a wonderful building that you have, and the organization that you work for. You guys work really hard there. Your volunteer group, second to none. And this summer was the first summer that I got to bring my grandchildren out there, and I think that would be the first place they want to hit off when they come the next time. So they had a great time.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nichols?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to take this time. I sit on the board with Emma and the group out at Fort La Prairie Museum, and her tenacity in moving forward with the fort out there has been wonderful. Taken on some big projects and got them finished off in a real timely manner, and some good futuristic goals are being looked at right now for the fort and for Fort La Prairie Museum, and I'm excited to see what we're going to come up with in a strat plan and some other plans going forward. It's a wonderful group. She's doing a wonderful job, and her staff are second to none out there in terms of welcoming and making things run on time and put on a great show every time. So thank you for that, Emma, and your presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, just some kudos to you, and looking forward to next year, and looking forward to the new diversity fashion show in February.
Mark
So
your calendars. I think you're going to be there.
yeah,
right?
I am.
Great.
So I'm looking forward to it. So
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
You
everyone.
too.
I got the sweater memo.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. We will open up public hearing for Utility Boring Authority Bylaw 24-8772. I'll ask if there is anyone here to speak in favor of this. Again, anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak against this? Anyone here to speak against? Anyone in the gallery with just questions? I do think we do have one letter to read out before we close the public hearing?
We do. We have one letter from Roquette. Dear City of Portage la Prairie team, Roquette is in receipt of the letter giving notice of the public hearing and first reading of the water treatment plant borrowing bylaw before the Portage la Prairie City Council, being held on Monday, December 9th, 2024. Roquette submits this letter in response to be read into the public record because a representative from Roquette will not be able to present at the hearing. As Council knows, Roquette is a global leader in plant-based ingredients, a pioneer of plant proteins, and a leading provider of pharmaceutical excipients. Roquette has invested more than 600 million Canadian for construction of the world's largest pea protein plant in Portage la Prairie. Roquette is one of the largest purchasers, if not the largest single purchaser, of Canadian-grown yellow peas for direct processing in Canada, the large majority of which are purchased from Manitoba farmers, with the resulting benefits to various aspects of the agricultural industry, including producers, suppliers, services, and others. As a material user of water and wastewater utility services in the city, rate increases may have the potential to significantly impact the economics of Roquette's operations. Roquette received less than 3 weeks' notice for the public hearing and first reading of the bylaw, which is not sufficient time to substantively review and respond to a proposed project of this magnitude. At this time, Roquette desires to make its preliminary concerns known. Due to the inadequate consultation undertaken, insufficient time given, and incomplete information provided to date, Roquette is unable to comment fully on the potential water and wastewater utility rate increases that are contemplated in the bylaw. Roquette is concerned about the lack of information that has been made available to the ratepayers. Roquette has made previous requests for more information in detail regarding this project, and Roquette restates all of its previous requests. The city advises that $100 million are needed for the project, and more than $55 million are going to be borrowed and repaid by increasing rates through a utility rate surcharge. However, Roquette has not been provided with sufficient information to show the connection between the request for funding of $100 million and the proposed project and its purpose, prudency, and necessity. The city has not provided a budget to support why it is contemplating a project that requires such a significant capital investment and how that capital will be spent. Roquette requests all of the information that the city has available for the basis of this request for funding, like plans, designs, and a budget, as well as the rationale as to why the city is contemplating a project that requires this level of capital investment. Finally, Roquette has not been advised how its rates will be impacted or how the rate design will be constructed as a result of the capital investment for the project. Roquette submits that these concerns should be resolved through effective consultation, provision of full information, and an adequate opportunity to fully understand and discuss same. After Roquette and the other ratepayers have been provided with full information, Roquette requests further opportunity to discuss the matter with the city, as well as more advance notice before the second reading of the bylaw before council. Roquette submits that its concerns are more appropriately discussed and resolved in this context rather than through contested Manitoba Public Utility Board proceedings. Thank you, Chris Chinnery, Plant Manager of Roquette Canada Limited.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Anything else before we close the public hearing?
Your Worship, I wonder, maybe just because we just got the letter, and maybe I could ask our city manager for a few preliminary comments about the letter from Roquette.
Through your Worship to Councillor Massey. So Ms. Friesen and myself had met with Roquette and their new management team approximately a month ago, and we did discuss the utility rate study. We explained that the first reading of the bylaw is required to start the borrowing process. It is a long process. It also runs tandem with our Public Utility Board application process. We did make a commitment in that meeting to meet with Roquette prior to the Public Utility Board process and discuss the fee structure, explain the project, explain the benefits to Roquette directly. So we have had those commitments and we have made those commitments. We did provide them with a draft rate schedule on how it could impact their rates. Clearly they have to input their own numbers and do their calculations, but we also made a commitment that we would be very clear on what the impacts to Roquette would be and also the advantages. I just want to mention that especially industry will disproportionately pay for a large part of this infrastructure, but will disproportionately benefit from this infrastructure. I'll make some of the comments, and I know some of our other members around the table may want to add in, but this is essentially to allow industry to grow for the next 50 years. It's allowed to give that redundancy, that capacity, and improve water quality for their production. So it's something we need to grow as a community, and it's something that we'll continue to have open and transparent discussions with industry and the public. But I do want to be clear that Ms. Fries and I will be responding to the letter to provide some additional information that's been requested, and we've made the commitment to have an additional meeting with Roquette on this matter.
Thank you. Just to clarify too, and maybe Ms. Friesen and even Ms. O'Leary on the economic, there's been a lot of changeover in leadership at Roquette over the past few years, right? So, because I know these are not new discussions with them on this expansion, correct?
Yeah, just to confirm that, we met with them, with the Roquette team approximately a year ago. We try to make an effort once a year. This project was brought up at that time, and said more information would be forthcoming once we got to that stage. And when we met with them this year, it was all relatively new players around the table. So I'll say it does come across as new information for sure.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks. Anyone else before we close the public hearing? Councillor Nichols?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to, we opened up discussion on this project some time ago, and it was brought forward that some of the advantages that, and just to remind my colleagues and those that are listening, that it's we tick off a lot of boxes in terms of where we're going with our pillars and our strategic plan, but some of the things to really think about too with this project, and I in this resolution and going forward, I will support it, is that we've designed this piece, and we're in the design stages now where we're probably just over halfway done with it. And some of the processes we have to go through for PUB and to get our rates established is exactly where we are today. But some of the heartfelt pieces that in terms of Portage la Prairie and the city and the economic growth of it, this plant is going to be designed to cover off growth for the next 50 years. The plant now that we are currently utilizing is running, and I'll put it in terms that is right to the maximum in terms of capacity. There's no room for downtime at all. In fact, the way that we have written agreements with the industries is that if we are down for any period of time and have to shut them down, we are able to do that, but there is, and in terms of our agreements with them, but there's a penalty and the price they pay when we have to do that. In doing this with the new plant, we're going to mitigate, or at least we're going to reduce those, definitely reduce them in terms of redundancy. The plant will be sized in a capacity in which we can absorb some maintenance pieces and give ourselves some time. It's very difficult to run a plant the way we do right now in terms of running full out to meet our demand. And being our wonderful industries in town, in the city here that rely on the water sources, there's going to be some definite advantages to them. The other part I'll comment too is cost of production. With the new technology going forward, we're definitely going to see an environmentally friendly terms of production. We're going to see reduced costs because of technology, and the environment is actually going to benefit greatly in terms of the process that we're looking at. And I'm just going to remind folks of that right now, and the redundancy part is huge for us in terms of maintenance. When you have it is very in operating a plant the way we do now, and it's at its maximum capacity, there's nothing more stressful in terms of an operations of a facility such as this. And being that water is such a critical piece of what we do in terms of the city. And the process standards that are in place, this is going to make it even better and more efficient in terms of costs of production. And those are just some items that I thought I'd re-embark on for everyone. Thank you for that, Ms.
Thank you. Okay, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that the public hearing for Utility Borrowing Authority Bylaw 24-8772 now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. All those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council colleagues, you have before you, of course, the issue of approving in first reading this evening the Utility Boring Authority Bylaw 248772. The City of Portage, as was mentioned, is planning to upgrade and expand our water treatment plant. And this plant expansion includes new raw water intake, I can't even say that next word, eluculation system for redundancy, and 4 trains of dual-stage ultrafiltration reserve osmosis membrane treatment system to both increase the plant capacity and water quality. Additionally, the project includes upgrades to the existing facility for repairs that cannot be completed until after the membrane system is operational. In terms of the cost, Stantec has provided an updated opinion of probable costs as of September 24th, 2024. It's estimating that the plant upgrade is $96.6 million. This estimate includes a 15% contingency allowance and a 6% inflation allowance. Due to the significant increases in infrastructure construction costs, an additional contingency of 4% has been added. So we're looking at a total cost for the water treatment plant expansion of $100,464,000. We have received $40 million, $250,000 in grant funding from the Manitoba Water Services Board for this project, and we will earn interest of $3,260,000, which will be applied toward the project. So we'll get interest from the money from the Water Services Board. The city is responsible for covering the remaining balance, and of this, $1,750,000 will be allocated from the utility reserve, and the remaining $55,204,000 will be funded through debentures. So that's what we're looking at this evening, is first reading for the $55,204,000. In looking at interest rates, the province has indicated our 30-year debt issuance rate as of October 2024 was 5.414%. And since this debt issuance is likely more than a year and a half away, an interest rate of 7% is being used to estimate the total impact on future water rates. And it's projected the debenture debt will result in a 60% increase in water rates for a household using 40 cubic meters of water per quarter. This would amount to an increase of $63.20 per quarter. Below you have the various steps we have on volume and so on. I won't go through those. Those are there for your information. But as was mentioned, the process for a municipality to obtain borrowing authority involves obtaining approval from the municipal board. And after we provide the bylaw, its first reading, it must be submitted to the municipal board for review and approval before any bylaw can proceed. So I would move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve Utility Borrowing Authority bylaw by giving bylaw 24-8772 first reading.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments from anyone? Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. And as Chair of Economic Development, I will certainly be supporting this first reading, that for the very reasons that Councillor Nichols had indicated as well. We do know that one of the kind of the sticking points we've had, and if you ever talk to Pred or to our Executive Director of Economic Development, one of the issues we've always had has been water capacity. In a growing community, we know there's a cost to growth, and everybody shares in that cost, but we need the water, and I think this is the best way to get it. That is also at the least cost when we've got the $40 million from the province. So with that said, I will be supporting first reading, and the letter, of course, from Roquette notwithstanding, I will look at it again at second reading. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I also would like just to make a few comments at this first reading stage. I'm excited. This is going to be the largest project, I think, in many of our lifetimes in Portage la Prairie. And why are we doing it? And when I went back to our strategic plan, and I just want to quote verbatim, we told the people of Portage la Prairie we were going to continue to invest in our utility infrastructure to retain and grow industrial investment in our region. And what that means is we are going to complete the engineering and funding for a water treatment plant expansion. So this, as mentioned, is to me securing our economic future. We're going to have probably a year-long conversation with businesses and our residents about this. One of the things I'm most proud of this council is that we are very transparent and open And the letter from Roquette clearly shows we're going to have a lot more dialogue with them and other businesses. But I think this is really, when you look at our strat plan and the survey we did, which is in your committee package, economic opportunity was rated very high. And this is going to help secure our future economically. So I look forward to talking to our citizens. I look forward to talking to businesses about this. But at the end of the day, we will be open and transparent and be very upfront with our citizens. And that's what I'm most proud of. This is a big project, but as finance chair, I support it. And as a councillor, though, I want to make sure we bring our citizen and businesses along. So I'll be supporting it. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Anyone else? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. We'll open up public hearing for second and third reading of bylaw 24-8768, zoning amendment PC 59-24 for Fox at 446 Tupper Street. I'll ask if there is anyone here to speak in favor of this application. You just need you to come to the mic, state your name, and you can either make a statement or just answer questions, whatever you'd like to do. But you have to state your name first, sir.
Sure. My name is BJ Fox.
Thank you. Did you have a statement or do you just want to answer questions?
No, I'm just here to, if anybody wants to ask anything, and I'll answer the questions.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. Does anybody have any questions at this time? Nope. You're off the hook for a minute.
Okay. I was going to mention something there. I wasn't expecting the water treatment plant, but I
this is a whole new subject.
Okay.
So
I was just gonna. It brought back memories.
yeah, we can chat later.
All right.
Okay. Thanks. Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Is
Well,
there anyone else?
I'll maybe make a small statement since I'm
Sure.
here. I just recently purchased a piece of property, 446 Tupper Street North. It was down on the bottom of the north side of the overpass. I drove by the property for years, looking at it, boarded up, seen things on secure portage, had people climbing in and out of the windows. Some of the neighbors were complaining on there that, that they had just a lot of trouble in the neighborhood. And I decided it was a good time to maybe invest in our community, buy this a piece of property that was in rough shape. I've already started to fix it up with new floors. It's going to be pretty well all new inside, put a new roof on it. I kind of thought that maybe the best would be for commercial space, have a more of a working professional kind of atmosphere in the area, give a lot of the people that live in the area there a break from what's been going on. And the previous owner had a couple pieces of property that were, in rough shape, and so I've decided to purchase them and fix them up, get them into the kind of state that we're all wanting to see. We have that new, we don't want to see boarded up property. I personally have never had any boarded up property in 20 years, but I am in the market of buying some that are boarded up, but my intentions would be to fix them up into a good state. And so
Mr. Fox, I don't want to, we're just going to stay right on the one property.
Sure.
Awesome. But no, good. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, you have a, sorry.
Sorry, thank you, Your Worship.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Mr. Fox, thank you, and I certainly appreciate you investing your time and your dollars, of course, in properties that maybe you deem obviously derelict or whatever situation they might be in. I know that it's not 100% for sure, and of course things can change, but if the bylaw is approved to amend it to C1, do you have an intended occupancy for it yet, or is it just kind of up in the air?
A few ideas, maybe. It's kind of up in the air right now. Maybe it could be like a chiropractic office or a massage therapy or hairstyling or just anything professional. It wouldn't be a convenience store or anything like that.
Sure. And if I could, Your
Sure.
Worship. So we are going to be dealing with a letter of objection here in regarding to the parking, and obviously, when you do rezone it as C1, there are certain number of parking stalls based on the size of the building and so on. I guess maybe I would just ask you directly how you feel you would address that, through Your Worship.
Well, I'd be willing to obviously work with the city if there's anything that I could do to help that situation. I do notice, like McDonald's Sporting Goods, for instance, or the old Rumors building on Tupper. I mean, there's just parking just basically on the side of the building. So for on Tupper there, on Fifth Avenue, there's parking all the way along Fifth Avenue, and then on the west side of Tupper Street, there's parking all along there. But if there was anything we could do, maybe with the new construction on the avenue, I noticed that there's the parking on the side now, parallel parking, and then there's kind of a, I call them like a lily pad that comes out. Maybe on Tupper there, we could put a lily pad out front on that corner there if that's what the city would like, something like that. Or I'm just willing to work with them if there's anything they need.
Sure. Sorry,
you.
maybe if I could just clarify.
Councillor Meyer?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. And if I could just clarify through Your Worship, of course, to Mr. Fox. No, I get the city, and that can certainly maybe come up in future discussions with the city or whatever, but it's more about your property that I'm concerned with, right? Because again, and maybe planning, it was more of a question when we were going to get through before we voted on the second and third reading, is that if it is, say, a retail store, it needs one parking stall for every 49.6 meters, if I'm correct, or whatever the number might be. Is there enough space to accommodate what your occupancy is, or will you be coming back for a conditional use in the future?
No, I believe it probably has all the parking that we're going to need.
Okay. I just do notice that in the report to council that there was a concern regarding parking, but it had been dealt with. And I guess my curious question would be just how has it been dealt with? And that would be more through the planning district, Your Worship.
Yeah. Mr. Gessel? You need a mic. Oh, there we go.
There we go. So currently at this time, based on our research we've done through the bylaw for a retail store of the size that the building is operating at, he's required to have 2 parking spots currently. When we met with Mr. Fox in our office, it was discussed that those could go, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were talking about coming in behind the building. So behind the building, there was space there to put in a parking stall that would access at least 2 to 3 spots. It does meet the current standard at this time. I can't speak to the volume of traffic that would increase there as far as what type of retail he has going on. But at this time, the bylaw does meet for 2 spots based on the size of the building.
Thank you.
And sorry, just for clarity, that would be based on the current occupancy as it stands right now. But if the occupancy did change to one of the things and it was a conditional use, then he would have to reapply to the city for a conditional use, or sorry, for a variance for the parking?
No, the parking is currently, we looked at it under C1.
Okay.
So when we look at it under C1 in the bylaw for our statistics, it comes back that it requires 2 spots based on the size of the building.
Okay, regardless of what the occupancy is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could
Good,
maybe
Councillor Meyer?
Yes, sorry, thank
Yeah,
you, Your Worship.
okay.
I could maybe
Thank you.
add, we probably have 3 parking spots. But if the business was, let's say, high traffic in the future, then the plans would probably be to relocate.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fox. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. I'll ask if there is anyone else here to speak in favor of this application. I'll ask if anyone is here to speak against this application. Again, anyone here to speak against? Is there anyone in the gallery with questions on this application? And I do believe we have a letter of objection to read out.
Yes, we have a letter from Chris Bures. It says, Nathan Pito, Grant Gessel, I received the notice of hearing for the rezone of 446 Tupper Street as per file PC 59-24. I am Chris Bures and I am the principal owner of 73688 Manitoba Limited, which owns the properties directly west across the street, including all of 447, 437, 429, 425 Tupper Street properties. This company, my family, has owned these properties for many years, dating back to the mid-1965s, so I'm very familiar with the area and traffic flow and parking. As a business person in Portage and a landowner, we are always for new development and bringing more business to all areas of town, but I do question this application in regard to the availability for parking. This is a very small lot, which is okay, but will only provide for 2 parking spots behind the building. With this property being rezoned to C1 commercial, it would be susceptible to all business falling within this zoning. My question is, where would customers be able to park? As per my drawing, there is no parking along the front of this address on Tupper, as it is a turning lane, and also no parking along 5th Avenue Northeast, so there is no direct access to parking from the street. There is some parking on the west side across the street, but would require walking across Tupper Street. The corner of Tupper and 5th Avenue is not a 4-way stop, so Tupper is full on traffic and vehicles are moving quickly on this street without having to stop, and there is no crosswalk. Tupper has a traffic flow of over 4,800 cars a day, so you can see my concerns. This corner is a very busy spot. The intentions of the applicant may be for a business that does not require any traffic flow, but the issue also is that once zoned to C1, this then is how the property is zoned, and the current or next owner may want a business under C1 that requires parking, which is not possible in this location. I do not believe that this location is suited for the rezoning application. These are my concerns as far as safety and usage for this application, and I hope that management and the planning district review application and the aforementioned concerns and bring this to the attention of council members, and perhaps a site visit by councillors would verify the concerns that they are voting on. Thank you, Chris Bures.
Thank you. Mr. Fox, I do have a question for you. I'm just curious why, because this was a residential property, and I know you're in that bit. How come not keeping residential? I'm just curious. Yeah.
I think it was a commercial business that used to be Reeves,
Okay.
and it's been commercial for 20 plus years, and I think that it got rezoned to residential, and I think the layout inside is really not laid out that great for residential,
Okay.
so they're having a hard time getting, a good renter, and I think which kind of leads to a bit of the problem. So I decided that probably putting it back to the way it was is probably the best thing to do. As far as Mr. Bures, he was saying there's no parking on 5th Avenue, but there is parking all the way along 5th Avenue. Maybe he's not aware of that, but all along the north side of 5th Avenue, there's parking there.
Thank you.
Yep.
And just for my own what type of residential was, or commercial was it? Oh, TV repair or something. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Okay, any questions? Anyone? Before we close the public hearing? Okay, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved, and I so move that the public hearing for bylaw 24-8768, zoning amendment PC 59-24 for Fox at 446 Tupper Street North now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. All those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, in front of you is a request for second and third reading We did do the original reading back on, where's the date? Was on October the 15th, so I will not go through the entire report to council. My concern, of course, at the time was just in regards to the parking. My concerns have been resolved, which I'll speak to in just a minute. But the request, of course, is to rezone it from R1 residential single-family zone to a C1 neighborhood commercial zone. And as per the Planning Act, after considering the results of the public meeting, council must within 90 days choose one of the three actions. And we're choosing that now. Under Section 73, amending a zoning bylaw to be sufficient for the purposes of applying Sections 74 to 79 to a proposed amendment to a zoning bylaw. Objections must be received from at least 25 eligible persons or 50% of the total number of property owners located within 100 meters of the affected property. I only reread that section because that certainly did not take place in this case. The background, as you already heard, and you heard from the applicant, it does fit within the Portage la Prairie Development Plan policy. And as I mentioned, first reading of this bylaw was given October the 15th, 2024. Tonight, we're looking for second reading, and if that does pass, to go to third reading as well. As of the writing, they had not received written objections, but we did receive a letter after this was put out, and that was certainly noted. The documents were circulated to provincial departments and agencies. There were no objections, and provincial planning recommended approval of zoning bylaw amendment number 248768. So with that said, that the council, I don't think I need to reread that, do I? It's just that bylaw number 248768 now be read a second time?
Mm-hmm. Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. Any questions or comments? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Worship. I just do want to recognize the letter from a citizen. I know that council takes any objections or letters in favor very, very seriously, and we do certainly give it consideration in our thinking of whether we're going to support or not support the motion. So with that said, I just want to remind council that the west side, of Tupper is already all zoned C1. Everything on the east side is R1. This would be the first C1 within that block radius. But again, as it does say, it does fit within the planning district or the planning bylaw. So for that reason, I will support it. Again, I'm a big fan of economic development, and I think in this area, it certainly can be used and certainly spruce up the area as well. So for that reason, I will be supporting the second reading. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Anyone else? I'll just comment that I too am in favor of, some of our what would be considered derelict properties having new life in them, and so I think that this is a good move for that local area and the people around it. Okay. All those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship, and that bylaw number 248768 be read a third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. With bells even. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
No report at this time in the meeting.
Yet.
Yet.
City Planning and Economic Development Committee, Councillor Meyer.
Nothing from City Planning Economic Development Committee at this point of the meeting.
Thank you. Community Services Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Community Services Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Waterworks Committee has nothing to report this portion of the meeting.
Thank you. Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Your Worship. Transportation has nothing to report.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Public Safety Committee has nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. We have no items of deferred business, and we will move right into new business. Water Treatment Plant, pub debt approval, Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee, Councillor Massey. Yeah, you better drink some water. Get ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. This evening, Council, we have the other piece of our water treatment plant upgrade, of course, and that is to get Public Utilities Board approval. So that's the issue before you. The City of Portage, as you know, I won't go through all what we talked about earlier, but we are looking at a major investment for our water treatment plant expansion. And once again, you have the breakdown there. So what we are doing here is we require Public Utilities Board approval in principle to issue the debt for our water treatment upgrade project. So we need a resolution of council. I therefore would move that the recommendation is, whereas the City of Portage la Prairie water treatment plant requires upgrade and expansion estimated to cost $100,464,000, and whereas the city intends to fund this project through grants, reserves, and debt issuance as follows. So these are very important numbers. Maybe I won't read them all there, but you have them there in front of you. And whereas the costs attributable to capital amortization and interest expense for this project are estimated to require an increase of 60% in water utility rates based on the city's utility rate setting methodology. Be it therefore resolved that the City of Portage la Prairie request approval in principle from the Public Utilities Board to issue debenture debt of up to $55,204,000, repayable over 30 years at an interest rate estimated at 7%.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments? Who was first? I don't know. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of extra comments on this one. And, you know, these numbers are big and so on, but one of the things that you should be aware is we may get further cost sharing on this project. So some of the numbers will change maybe because of that. And if we're looking down a year from now, when we issue the debenture, it may be less than the 7%. So administration has gone and given us the scenario that they think at this point, but if we get more favorable interest rates, we get some more cost sharing, certainly the numbers will change. But we're asking the Public Utilities Board for this approval now so that we have it. We don't have to go back. And that process takes a bit of time. The municipal board process takes a bit of time, as you know. So, but I just wanted to put those on the record that these numbers may change over the coming year. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through Your Worship to our city manager. How does this affect our borrowing power? I mean, we know that we can only borrow so much, and it affects our future borrowing power. Am I understanding that in the utility it is a different scenario, or is it just because of the nature of the project?
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Meyer, I think that's a very good question. So borrowing capacity is determined by the province based on your assessment base. However, when you invest in or borrow for large utility-based projects, you can request the province give you special exemption because utility rates are funded obviously separately than municipal taxes, so it shouldn't be calculated under the same formula. So in this process of applying to the public utility boards, we're also having discussions with the province to give us an exemption for that in terms of our overall borrowing capacity for the municipality. So again, your borrowing from the utility with permission from the province can be viewed separately than your debt capacity for your municipality that's funded by proportion assessment.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just quick follow-up. So it doesn't affect our future borrowing capacity in case of emergency or something else that goes on, or does it?
It could reasonably impact our borrowing capacity in terms of the utility because you have obviously borrowed money for the utility, but in terms of municipal projects that are funded under our general fund, it should not be considered.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Another item of new business, the 2025 interim operating and capital budget, Finance, Legislative and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship. And colleagues, you see before you the next item is to approve our interim operating and capital budgets until such time as our 2025 budget is approved. The analysis is before the budget is approved, administration is not authorized to spend funds during the year. The adoption of an interim budget grants the necessary approval for administration to operate until the full budget is adopted. This aligns with Section 163 of the Municipal Act, which states a council may adopt an interim operating budget to remain in effect until the council adopts the operating budget for the fiscal year. And you'll see there, I won't go through all the numbers there, but the 2025 interim operating capital budgets are as follows, and you see under the general fund, what we're asking for an interim supply and under the utility fund, what we're asking for temporary approval. So I will move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the 2025 interim budgets as follows: 5.9 million for operating and 1.5 million for capital budgets for the general operating fund, and 4.2 million for operating and 2.4 million for capital budget for the utility operating fund.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments? Councillor Massey?
Just a question to administration. These numbers under the Municipal Act, is it a percentage of our total budget, or is there some discretion that you have in setting those amounts?
Through your worship to Councillor Massey, I'll ask Ms. Sadney to speak to that.
So we have some discretion in setting that. We base it on about 25% of our projected budget costs for 2025.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Next item of new business, 2024 projects in progress, Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Colleagues, before you have the issue is to authorize transfer of the 2024 operating funds to reserves to fund projects in progress to be completed in 2025. So these are carryovers from the previous year. At the end of each year, as you well know, there's capital projects in our city that we're unable to complete, typically due to factors beyond our control, such as climate, vendor-related issues. And when these projects are funded by reserves, the funding can be rolled into the following year's budget. However, when they are funded by operating funds, this option is not available. In such cases, the operating funds must be transferred to the appropriate reserve, allowing administration to include the projects in the next year's budget using the funds previously earmarked for their completion. So we're basically now taking some carryover and putting it into the next fiscal year so that we can use them. And there you have the projects that are funded. In 2024, we'll have the remaining funding transferred to reserve. One there I'll maybe note is, of course, the Cocoa Platts Community Center rebuild. We did get insurance there, and you'll see $1,060,826. So a very important project for our community that will be carried into the following year. And you have some other amounts there for various things. So I would move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the transfer of $1,290,826 to the General Reserve from the General Operating Fund, and $149,700 to the Utility Reserve from the Utility Operating Fund to complete projects in 2025.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments from anyone? All those in favor? And that is carried. Next item of new business, sponsorship request for the 2025 Viterra Men's Curling Provincial Championships. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Worship and colleagues. And this is a good one. This is a real fun one. We are considering a grant, a sponsorship to the 2025 Viterra Men's Curling Provincial Championship host committee to support this event. And as you know, Portage la Prairie has been selected to host the 2025 Men's Provincial Curling Championships from February 5th to 9th, 2025. And this is actually, I didn't know this, this is the 100th anniversary of the first Manitoba Championship. So all the curling people in our community should take note of that. It provides an excellent opportunity to showcase our community's businesses and facilities. And administration is recommending using the accommodation tax, marketing, economic development, tourism reserve to fund $8,000 as a Diamond Plus sponsorship of the event. And of course, this requires a resolution of council. So I would move that the council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve a withdrawal of $8,000 from the accommodation tax reserve to be used for sponsorship of the 2025 Viterra Men's Curling Provincial Championship.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. Sitting again from an economic chair, a lot of the conversations I have with our business owners, whether they be restaurateurs or hoteliers or people that just have goods for sale, say keep bringing these events in. We know that not only it's 100th anniversary, we celebrate that portion, but the economic spin-off that it does have within our community is incredible, whether it be for our hotels, restaurants, and so on. So this is really what these dollars are designed for, and I think it comes back tenfold, and it's certainly something that I would support to show the city's commitment, not only to obviously the Viterra, but obviously just to our economic platform as well. So I will certainly be speaking in favor of it, Your Worship.
Thank you. And just my comment too is on, especially when we hold some of these events in our beautiful Stride Place, they do a great job of keeping that building up to date and beautiful. But when you have great big special events, you kind of put the extra seal of maintenance on them, and I think it just has helped keep that building in the shape it is. So keep bringing them in for sure. All those in favor? And that is carried. New business, Gillespie Center washroom upgrades, Finance, Legislative and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, before you is a proposal to approve $30,000 from the Gillespie Center Reserve for washroom upgrades. And as you know, our Gillespie Center has recently undergone significant washroom renovations. These were essential for addressing aging infrastructure, improving the facility reliability, creating inclusive spaces for all community members. So when it's with modernized, fully accessible and gender-neutral washrooms, the facility is now better equipped to accommodate the growing diversity of events, groups in the city, including Pride, Indigenous events, and cultural celebrations. And these improvements align with the city's commitment to fostering an inclusive and accessible community. That's a very important part of this. Administration is recommending that council approve $30,000 from the Gillespie Center Reserve be allocated to fund a portion of the costs associated with the washroom renovation at the facility. And to access this, from this reserve, we require a resolution. So I will move that the council of the city of Portage la Prairie approves the withdrawal of $30,000 from the Gillespie Center Reserve to be used for the washroom upgrades at the Gillespie Center.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Next item of new business, BDO Center repairs, Finance, Legislative and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before you have the request from BDO Center for some funding for repairs they've done. And the proposal here is to take this funding out of the BDO Center Building Reserve to fund those repairs. As all of you well know, the BDO Center's West Arena provides additional ice time for recreational skating, hockey, ringette, and figure skating. And during the fall, they encountered challenges with the brine system, which required repairs before the ice could be installed for the season. Those repairs totaled $24,047.52, including taxes. And these repairs were paid by the Centennial Community Club, incorporated at the time of service, and they are now requesting reimbursement. So I would move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve reimbursement of the repairs totaling $24,047.52, including taxes, to the Centennial Community Club, Inc., funded by the BDO Center Building Reserve.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Next item of new business, Saskatchewan Avenue West, Phase 2, project financing, Finance, Legislative and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship and colleagues. You're not bored of me yet, I hope. Okay. This is a good one. To approve the financing for the remaining balance of our beautiful Saskatchewan Avenue West project to be drawn from the Infrastructure Reserve. And as you know, the Saskatchewan Avenue West project reached substantial completion in 2024. The city received approval from the Municipal Board to borrow $13,739,000. To date, we have borrowed $12,441,000 towards this project. $1,298,000 is remaining of the approved borrowing authority. The city's portion of the balance remaining is approximately $1.2 million. So it's anticipated that majority of this will be expensed by the end of 2024, and $350,000 would be carried into 2025 for project closing costs. So administration has come forward, is recommending using funds from the infrastructure reserve to cover the remaining balance of this project. And this is very, very good news. The city would save this would save the city approximately $537,000 in interest over a 15-year long-term, 15-year loan term based on current provincial rate of 5.025%. So it's saving us money by going this route. So I'd move that the council of the city of Portage la Prairie allocate $1.2 million from the infrastructure reserve fund, the Saskatchewan Avenue West Phase 2 project.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. New business, October financial statements. Finance, Legislative and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship. And colleagues, you have before you the end of October financial statement of financial position for the city of Portage la Prairie. It's for your information, but if you have any questions, any detailed questions, I'm sure administration can answer those, but it's for your information.
Thank you. Take a little break now, Councillor Massey. Thank you. Just for a minute. Another item of new business, October building reports. City Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Meyer.
Oh, I just love reading these reports. I'm guessing you guys never noticed that. Let me see all the work that Pred and of course Planning District, City Investment Groups, and I can go on. Of course, this is the proof of where our city is going, and to see not only our contractors, our developers, our commercial, industrial, residential people investing money back into our city is really what it's all about at the end of the day. So as usual, you will see the report for the city and a report for the RM. Obviously, our planning district is regional, so I will refer you to just the regional combined totals, and only a couple of things I'll point out because they still are amazing numbers. I mean, this year we've had 283 permits for a total of $340 million. We do know that about 240 of that is 252 is the hospital. We get that. But even when you take that out and you extrapolate the numbers compared to last year, we're in the same position where we were last year with a little bit of growth in it as well. Again, the thing that you're starting to see the trend on, and I think the thing that gets maybe this council really excited is just the increase in repairs. It just shows you people are putting money back into not only their homes, back into their commercial businesses, for the upkeep and so on. And I think our city is extremely proud when you start to see just the look of what actually happens in some of those situations. So kind of the trend, even though we are the city, I mean, our great partners in the RM, you will see that there is an increase in some new farm buildings, which again does affect us as a regional community as well. So with that said, once again, I just want to congratulate or thank you to obviously Pred, our investment groups, and of course the planning district for the work that they continually do in order to make this what it is. So if there's any questions, we can certainly try to answer them. If not, that is the end of my report, Your Worship. And I can turn my lights off.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Another item of new business, the approval of the fire services agreement between the RM and the city of Portage la Prairie. Public Safety, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship to Councillor Massey, we would never get bored of you listening to you talk. Have a drink of water. I'll take over for a bit here. So the first issue at hand here is whether or not to approve the new fire services agreement between the RM of Portage la Prairie and the city of Portage la Prairie. So under the Municipal Act, both municipalities are required to provide fire protection and rescue services to their respective citizens. Also under the Municipal Act, it says that a municipality may enter into an agreement with any other municipality to provide those services. So back in 2014, the city and the RM entered into an agreement for fire protection and rescue services for the citizens of the RM. The current agreement is set to expire December 31 of this year, and on average, over that 10-year agreement, the RM paid the city approximately $577,000 per year, including capital reserve transfers. So some things to point out in this new agreement, it would begin January 1 of next year and end on December 31st of 2034. The city agrees to continue providing firefighting and rescue services to the same standard that we have been using under this prior agreement. The RM will now pay the city $770,000 plus an annual Canada national average CPI adjustment for its obligation and services under this agreement on or before September 1st of that year. The Portage Fire Chief will now be the Municipal Emergency Coordinator for the RM when the Emergency Operations Center is activated, and the Portage Fire Chief will now provide quarterly reports to the RM as well. So when it comes to alignment with our council strategic plan, this does fall under community safety and well-being. It is the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie authorize the Mayor and the Manager of Administration to sign the proposed agreement between the rural municipality of Portage la Prairie and the City of Portage la Prairie for the firefighting and rescue services to the citizens of the RM of Portage, commencing January 1st, 2025 and ending December 31st, 2034, unless terminated earlier in accordance with the provisions of this agreement or by mutual consent. And I so move.
Moved by Councillor Doyle, seconded by Councillor Massey. Any questions or comments? I'll just make a comment that I'm just thank you to our administrative team, who I think went into these negotiations with our partners fully prepared, with the right information to show sort of where we needed to be at for a positive partnership for the future. And I think just a thank you to our municipal partners in the RM. I think this is a really fair agreement, and I think it just shows the growth of our partnerships and our willingness to grow in all the areas that we do partner on. So I'm very proud of this agreement for the next 10 years. I think it puts our fire services in a good spot. So all those in favor, and that is carried. Okay. Next item of business is the IAFF negotiations, public safety. Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. The issue at hand here is to finalize negotiations with the International Association of Firefighters. So the IAFF collective agreement will expire on December 31st of this year. Council provided administration with negotiation parameters in preparation for the contract renewal process, and the tentative agreement proposed includes general wage increases of 4% for 2025 and 3.5% for 2026, 27, and 28. Additionally, captain shift differentials will increase 0.5% in 2027, and senior firefighters shift differentials increase by 0.5% in 2028. So there's a couple other things that were part of the agreement, some minor additions to clothing allowance and acting pay clauses, an additional lump sum payment for family to attend the fallen firefighters memorial in Ottawa, introduction of a letter of understanding for a trial period for 24-hour shifts for the firefighters, and a letter of understanding outlining the 311 service. The association agrees that they're going to continue to assist the city by answering after-hours emergency and non-emergency calls for other departments. So it is the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the mayor and city manager be authorized to sign a collective agreement with IAFF Local 1079.
Moved by Councillor Doyle, seconded by Councillor Massey. Any questions or comments? Councillor Massey?
Just a quick comment, Your Worship. I'm so pleased that we've reached this agreement, and I want to thank our city manager, our fire chief, Mr. Bailey, and Brandy Smith, who was our HR person. We now have agreements with both the firefighters and CUPE. That's huge, that we will have labor stability in our municipality. And you see some of the issues on labor instability throughout our society. So well done, and this really sets us up great for the next several years with labor stability.
Yeah, and just a comment to thank both, our administration and as well as our local firefighters here for negotiating in good faith and, coming together to make an agreement, I think, for the next few years that benefit us all. So grateful for that and grateful for their service in our community. All those in favor? And that is carried. Another item of new business, the award tender of the rescue truck. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. So what the issue at hand is here is whether or not to award the tender 2024 Fire 003 for the supply of one rescue truck. The tender was posted on Merck's and on the city's website, and 7 copies of the tender were emailed out, and 1 submission was received back. The tender closed on Friday, November 29th of this year. So the submitted tender was evaluated, and the bid price from Acres Industries, Inc. was $1,261,982.50 net of GST. The 2024 Fire Department capital budget allocated $1.2 million for this project. And since the fire truck chassis are exclusively manufactured in the U.S., causing the cost to fluctuate a little bit with the Canadian dollar, administration, with the support of the RM of Portage, has applied for Manitoba Grow grant, but we won't know if our application is successful yet until the new year. This aligns with our second point of our strategic plan as well, the community safety and well-being, and it is the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie award the tender for the rescue truck as specified in tender 2024 Fire 003 to Acres Industries, Inc. for the total price of $1,261,982.50 net of GST.
Moved by Councillor Doyle, seconded by Councillor Massey. Any questions or comments? Councillor Meyer?
Sorry, thank you, Your Worship. Even though this vehicle is certainly over budget, I'm certainly happy to support the administrative recommendation. I'm just so proud of this council that we're willing to invest in new equipment that keeps us up to date, equipment that keeps our citizens safe. I'm obviously not going to speak for the public safety chair, but from my chair, I just think it is really important that we keep on top of this and keep our equipment current and really show our citizens of Portage la Prairie that we do make the investment in order to obviously make them safe and secure in most cases. So yes, I will be supporting the administrative recommendation, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Doyle?
Yes, I would agree as well. This fire truck, there was a lot of work put into the design of it, and there's no frills on it. Everything that's on there is required, and there are some things that we will need in the future because these fire trucks last 20 to 25 years. So it's important that not only we plan for today, but we plan for down the road as well. And with a lot of uncertainty, especially with regards to pricing in the future, I think it's a good idea that we're acting on this now and we get the ball rolling on it. So.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. Next item of new business, approval of the 2025 emergency plan. Public safety, Councillor Doyle.
That's my last one.
Last
Councillor
one.
Massey. So the issue at hand is to approve the 2025 emergency plan for the City of Portage la Prairie. The Manitoba Emergency Measures Organization mandates that all municipalities must have an emergency response plan in by December 31st. The plan has been reviewed and updated by administration, and it's included on Council's agenda for all of our review, but is not available to the public due to some confidential information. So it's the administrative recommendation, and I would move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approves the 2025 emergency plan and authorizes administration to send the city's emergency plan and accompanying resolution to the Manitoba Emergency Measures Organization.
Moved by Councillor Doyle, seconded by Councillor Massey. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we will move into old business, but just before I do, I forgot to say, welcome back, Mary. I just realized you're back around the table.
Thank you.
Okay. Old business, second and third reading of City Building Reserve Fund Bylaw 24-8770. And he's back. Finance, Legislative, and
By
Property
popular
Committee.
demand.
Councillor
Okay.
Massey, back in the house.
Thank you, Your Worship. Boy, you make me feel good. I won't take long on this. You saw this in committee. We basically here are combining our 4 reserves that run our buildings, into one city building reserve fund. This is something council had asked administration to consolidate these reserves. We had many of them on the books. So all we're doing here is combining into one reserve fund. So I'd move that the council of the city of Portage la Prairie approve the city building reserve fund by giving bylaw 24-8770 first reading.
Second reading.
Yes,
that-
the council of the city of Portage la Prairie gives second reading to the city building reserve bylaw 24-8770.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Massey.
And the other one that you
You
saw.
still need, we do need to do third reading.
Oh, sorry. Jeez. Okay.
I take back the kudos. Just kidding.
Okay. I'm getting fired here. I know. Okay. Yeah. Be it resolved that bylaw 24-8770 be read a third and final time, finally passed, signed, and sealed, and that the balances of the Gillespie Center Reserve Fund bylaw number 09-8437, Portage Regional Library Building Reserve Fund bylaw number 18-8679, BDO Center Building Reserve Fund bylaw number 19-8697, and Herman Pryor Center Building Reserve Fund bylaw number 22-8744 be transferred to the City Building Reserve Fund bylaw number 24-8770.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. You just didn't want to read all that. All those in favor? That's carried. You can redeem yourself. You still have one more.
I got one more.
Old business, second and third reading of
and-
Policing General Reserve Fund bylaw 24-8771. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Worship and colleagues. You also saw this one at committee. And as you know, we have in 2020, the Policing General Reserve Fund bylaw was established to allocate funding for the retroactive salary costs stemming from the collective agreement of the RCMP. And in that reserve, we hold approximately $1,417,000. And the retro pay that is due to the federal government at the end of March 2025 is approximately $734,000. So the original intent of that reserve fund was satisfied. It's essential to revisit the reserve's purpose. And over the past year, our public safety portfolio has expanded significantly to include the Community Safety Officer Program, a great program that was instituted in our community, and the Animal Retention Facility. So considering these developments, administration's recommending we amend the reserve fund to encompass both operational capital expenditures associated with the 3 big pillars of our safety program: policing service, community safety officer program, and bylaw enforcement programs. And this amendment would create a designated reserve to allocate funding specifically for future expenses related to these critical programs. So I would move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie give second reading to bylaw 24-8771.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Massey?
And I would move that bylaw 24-8771 be read a third and final time, finally passed, signed, and sealed.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. All those in favor? And that's carried. Well done, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship.
We will adjourn council at 7:20 p.m. and we will move right into committee. Call committee to order at 7:20 p.m. Oh, you're back. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Worship and colleagues. what you have before you for committee this evening, as you know, we undertook a extensive budget consultation survey, and we have the results. And we've been talking about this in our community, and this really identifies what our public thinks about a lot of what priorities we have as a council. So we received online from October 29th to November 30th, 133 responses. And the survey identified the current council's current strategic priorities. And we asked our citizens to select their top 3 priorities. And here's the results. As you can see, quality of life, 83.46% of people, 0.46% of our citizens think that's an important strategic priority. Community safety and well-being, 84.25% was the highest one. Showcasing our community, 16.54%. Economic opportunity, 75.59%, and inclusive and informed community, 18.90%. And as I say, we asked our citizens for feedback, and based on these results, and we said we would make them public, so here they are. The various concerns were identified, such as public transit, improvement of our infrastructure, increased housing developments, increased policing, and community safety. And you know, I think the survey really gives us an insight with our citizens. And you know, you may think the sample is small. I think it is very representative of our community. So it's there for your information, but if there's anything you want to ask or discuss, I'll turn it back over to our mayor.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on that? Councillor Porter?
I just want to make a comment about the survey, that how important these surveys are to us in making decisions and budget. And so I want to thank everybody who answered the survey. And if there is other ones in the future, please invite other people and talk about it and mention it to other people when we have one of these surveys. They are very important to us.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else under your portfolio?
Yes, Your Worship. I have just a couple of short reports, and then I have a question for administration. First of all, I wanted just a short report on my attending the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Advocacy Days in Ottawa. We had very good meetings. We had a number of key politicians and senior staff that we met with, and I was able to talk about 3 things. One, of course, the housing and the importance of housing and targets and working with municipalities to deal with the housing crisis in our country. And we really pushed that we can't compare Toronto with Portage la Prairie when it comes to targets and so on. So I think we really got that message through, that one size does not fit all municipalities in Canada. We talked about the need for a new municipal growth revenue program. We need to find a way for alternate revenues besides just property taxes. That's our main source. It doesn't grow with the economy, and we raised that, and that will be a big focus of the FCM election work, is we need to find different ways to fund municipalities, and we're trying to engage the premiers and the federal government and the municipal sector on that. And lastly, no surprise, public safety and sustainable policing, and we really talked a lot about things that Portage has raised many times: the vacancy rate, costs of policing, consulting with municipalities on these contracts that we're involved in, and also the need for social and mental health support. Very important. You can't have public safety without the supports for people as well. And I'm pleased that we did get the board did pass finally a bail reform policy that now incorporates FCM's work on bail reform, which is something I know our city and our mayor has been pushing a lot, and our public safety chair. We need bail reform, and now it's part of FCM. So that's a quick snapshot of the FCM advocacy days, and it's no secret we'll probably be into an election next year. Thank you. I have one other report.
Sure, go ahead.
My other report is, of course, we attended the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, and I was very pleased that our council was very noticed there. We had our mayor ask a question at the Ministers' Forum. I asked the Premier about revenue growth, and I was just very pleased with a lot of the convention, but I do want to acknowledge our mayor, and she is now the new chair of the Cities Caucus. And I think, you know, having worked at the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, I can tell you this is a very critical group for advocacy on behalf of municipalities. The cities group carries a lot of weight, and I'm so pleased that our mayor is now going to lead that committee. So those are my two reports, Your Worship, but congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
My question to administration, though, is, we've talked about the labor strife and so on. We've had a postal strike for the last, I don't know how long it's been, but I want to ask our city manager, could you give maybe how we're dealing with the strike in terms of servicing our community, our residents? Mail is not moving. Can you just give us an update on sort of the work administration is doing to deal with the postal strike?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Massey, I'll refer that question to Ms. Sadney.
The city has a number of electronic options available to our citizens, and we are encouraging people to take advantage of them. There are a couple of areas that have been impacted more heavily than others. For example, utility billing. We typically mail bills out once a month. Every area is billed on a quarterly cycle. So in November, our Area 3, which is everybody north of the tracks, their utility bills were created. However, we were unable to mail the paper copies of the bills out. The electronic bills have been sent out, so if you were signed up for e-billing, you have received a copy of your bill. For people who are not already signed up for e-billing, you can stop by our temporary City Hall location and pick up a copy of your bill, or you can just reach out to our staff. We would be happy to provide you your balance over the phone or in person, whichever works better for you. Additionally, if you're not already signed up for e-billing and you would like to be signed up for e-billing, you can do that on our city's website, or you can ask our staff to give you a hand signing up for that. We'd be more than happy to get you registered with that. Another area that we are finding some challenges is our parking tickets. Most of our parking tickets are mailed out when the violations are issued, which means there are violations that we haven't been able to send out. Typically, you have a 14-day period from the time the parking ticket is issued to receive a discount rate on the fine associated with the violation. Because we have been unable to mail out those tickets, we are holding off on starting the discount date for them. So once the mail strike ends and we're able to put the tickets in the mail, we'll offer you a 14-day window to still obtain that discounted rate on your parking ticket. And one of the other areas we are finding challenges is our accounts payable. We are reaching out to our vendors and encouraging them to sign up for EFT. That is the fastest and smoothest way to ensure that you're paid on time. Additionally, if you would prefer to receive a check, we are contacting people and asking them just to stop by City Hall to pick those checks up. For all other miscellaneous issues, staff are communicating through phone calls and emails trying to get the same information and services out to people as we were before.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. That's my report.
Thank you. Okay, City Planning and Economic Development Committee, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Community Services Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are a few items. Last week, of course, we attended not only the Christmas tree lighting, but the Vopney Park lighting. So I'd like to pass on kudos to both the Holiday Avenue project and the city staff for assisting with that. Also to mention, we have the Holiday Lights contest coming up, and the deadline for entries is December 11th. Pre-judging takes place December the 12th, and the top 5 will be placed on the city's website for public voting, and that will happen between December 13th and 17th. The winner receives a City of Portage gift package, and to register, go to the city's website and have your home entered in the holiday tour map.
I bet you they'll get a pair of City of Portage socks. We'll have to advertise those.
Well, they'll have to now.
Yeah.
And next up, through Your Worship, I'd like to call upon Councillor Meyer to give a report related to Community Services Committee.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Espy. I just wanted to kind of bring the forefront as we're probably 8 weeks within the campaign of the 2024 United Way. I'd like to bring it up for 2 reasons. One, just to bring, again, a little bit more focus. We do know that the United Way is a national organization, split up regionally, and obviously we are the United Way West Central region. So there has been a new branding, but of course it's as relevant today as it was 50 years ago. But we are the Portage la Prairie Area Campaign, and there are roughly 3 weeks left. We do have a very aggressive goal this year that I wanted to point out of $229,000. But I just wanted to kind of really congratulate the city as one of the partners for taking the steps to really support the United Way, specifically through their payroll deduction. When the city takes leadership like that, others follow. And we certainly encourage anybody that hasn't or would like to do any kind of a payroll deduction or any type of a corporate deduction, certainly to reach out. The campaign does run until the end of December, but once again, I just wanted to congratulate the city for their support and have been a great supporter for the last 50 years. So on behalf of the United Way team, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you to, of course, City Manager, and not more importantly, but just as importantly, Stacy, who is our payroll, who has taken some steps to facilitate that. So thank you, Your Worship, for allowing that. And thank you, Councillor Espy, for allowing me to bring that up in your committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. And last but not least, through your worship, I would like to call upon our youth councillors to talk about an event that is once again coming up, as the weather has not been cooperating with us and we've had to reschedule it a couple of times.
Thank you. Councillor Ramachandran?
The event is the meet and greet with the councillors. It's taking place at PCI. And we had it scheduled for December 4th from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. The event would involve all of the students during lunch hour meeting up with the councillors and enjoying free pizza bought with the youth councillor's salary or budget. I meant budget. And
talk louder.
Oh. Okay. And due to weather circumstances, the event was postponed until a later date today. And it was also canceled today because there's no buses today. So it may be postponed again until after the year ends in the start of January.
Thank you. We hope to all be there.
I'm sure we will be, as long as the weather cooperates. And I'm sure third time's a charm.
Yes, thank you.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Councillor Espy. Okay, Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Waterworks Committee has nothing to report in committee, but I just, for those that either had maybe not forgotten but weren't sure or didn't know, we still carry the best tasting water in Western Canada, and that's with us for at least a year. Thank you.
Thank you. Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Worship. Transportation has nothing to report. Just on that note of weather and unpredictable weather, that the roads the other day where I was so excited to see cement again or asphalt again on the Crescent Road. Next thing you know, we're back to the same old snow again the next day. And just a precaution out there, please make sure when you're driving down those side streets that there are stop signs there and there are pedestrians and cyclists out there. I've seen the cyclists out today, as a matter of fact, in all the snow. And so please make sure that you exercise all kinds of caution. And I'll just pass it over to Councillor Doyle for his little speech.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Doyle. Oh.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. I just wanted to touch on this past Friday, Mayor Knox, Councillor Porter, and myself, we put a team in for Operation Red Nose. It's a free service in Portage that is based on volunteers, and it's about getting people home safe during the holidays, people and their vehicles home safe. So the program this year is in need of volunteers throughout the remaining nights for December. And if you are interested in volunteering, please go to the Portage RCMP detachment, get your free criminal record check, contact Operation Red Nose, and throw your name in as a volunteer. Again, this is a free service for anyone who's using it, and they need some volunteers because it's just very important.
Thank you. Any more for public safety, Councillor Doyle? Yeah.
Oh, I just one quick question.
Oh,
if I could,
sorry.
Your Worship. Sorry about that. It's
Councillor
more.
Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. And it's just more of a question of clarification. I know the answer, but I've been asked a number of times. And maybe if we can get it out. When we do sand, we just sand intersections. We do not sand the entirety of the street, right? And I just would like some clarification from administration on that, because I get the question, not daily, but since we've had some ice build up, is why don't we sand the streets? Thank you, Your Worship.
Through Your Worship to Councillor Meyer, I'm going to pass that question on to our Director of Operations.
There's a few reasons why. One is cost. Obviously, it's very expensive to remove ice everywhere. The most important parts to remove are at the intersections. That's where you have the most potential for accidents. Ecologically, all of our runoff water south of the avenue runs into Crescent Lake. We want to minimize the amount of chemicals that we are flushing into the lake. We have a lot of wildlife that lives there. We don't use salt at all, actually, but we use sand and the beet juice, which is more easier, breaks down better ecologically. So that's part of the reason we use that. It does break down the ice at certain temperatures. When it gets really cold, it can't, but in warmer temperatures, freezing temperatures still, but closer to zero, it does start breaking down the ice.
And Mr. Quidrobin, I did some Googling of my own, and because people ask me about why don't we scrape the roads all the time, and what I read was that it causes more damage. Like, you know, we have such damage in the spring that scraping them too much causes damage that you have to repair in the spring.
Absolutely, yeah. The more we scrape them down, the quicker they'll break down. Also, the salt as well. That's why we don't. Another reason we don't use it. Salt does break down concrete and asphalt much quicker than when you don't use it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I think it's just important that people recognize that you drive to road conditions, right? And I trust that the media would pick up on that again, why we don't sand the entirety of the streets, and could be maybe a bit of a news story, Madam Mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And did you want to do a little update on?
Yep, Your Worship, just because it's very topical with the amount of snow we recently received, Operations did post a snow clearing update. So they have cleared the priority routes today and are moving into Area 4. So for those who are looking to track our snow clearing updates, please monitor our social media. So they are on to Zone 4, which they'll clear through the night. So our crews are working all night to get those areas clean, Zone 4. And then we'll move into Zone 5, which is primarily north of Saskatchewan Avenue, but south of the tracks into tomorrow, and then continue moving on. So please monitor our social media for updates on snow clearing.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm a little more prepared for this one. So I just wanted to ask Chief Bailey, our Director of Public Safety, about our new CSOs, how they're doing. On November 19th, we had 4 brand new CSOs start, and just wondering if I can get an update.
Yeah, so our CSOs are all out in full force. I'm sure everybody's seen them on the streets. We have had, again, issues with getting equipment. Body armor does take quite a few weeks to get in. So luckily, our bylaw service provider was able to loan us a couple sets of body armor to fit the ones that we were missing. So we have everybody out on the streets. They're doing regular patrols. They're out in the car, going through the community. Our new manager, CSO manager, Caitlin, has been a valuable asset. She's there to mentor them as well as direct their operations. So I feel this second time around is much more effective, and we're accomplishing the goals that we set out to.
Excellent.
Thank you, Your Worship. The only other thing I'd want to mention with regards to public safety is Councillor Massey is not only wearing an artificial pair of suspenders, but there's a real pair of suspenders underneath them. So I've never seen that as a fashion statement before. Staying safe, though. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. We will adjourn committee at, if nothing else, we'll adjourn committee at 7:41 p.m. And if it's okay with everybody, do we want a 3-minute break before we move into the budget? 5-minute break before